Hello everybody, welcome to episode 6, Smart Ass Salmon. We got signed on a little bit earlier today to try to get everybody a chance to find it and make it nice and easy, hopefully for everybody to locate us. I had my mixer out here. We had, I think Vicky asked us why I brought it out. 5 o'clock every day, I wants to start barking. Like she's been laying down doing nothing all day long. Missy, come on in here. What are you doing? He's got to be heard. You just got to be heard. But I put the mixer out to do mashed potatoes with, just so I don't have to mash the entire time and, break a sweat. I want to try to stay as pretty as I can for you. As you can see, letting it out. trying to let the hair out, but yeah, I'm gonna need a haircut pretty soon. So hopefully, once they lift all this stuff, we can get out there and catch a fade. I think I'm gonna do a mullet. Tonight we are going to be using a cookie sheet lined with foil. That's just to help with cleanup. You don't have to do that, but I always do because I don't want to scrub everything when I'm done cooking. It is going in the oven. We are going to be broiling on high. First here on the oven rack, closest to the broiler. You're going to need a pot of water, large pot of water. That's for blanching the green beans. I have that turned on already, just to kind of get the water up to temp. You'll need a smaller pot for your potatoes, or a large enough pot that's going to fit your chunked up potatoes in there. We're going to be boiling the potatoes with the milk instead of using water beforehand. We're just going to heat them with the milk, and then it's going to go right into the mixer. Salt, pepper. We'll add the butter in when it's in the mixer, and then we'll whip them. That way the potatoes stay nice and hot, and you don't have to worry about them cooling down in between pulling them off the stove and all that stuff. Just kind of makes it a little bit easier. You're just going to want to put enough milk in to cover the amount of potatoes that you're using in the pot. We can always add a little bit more milk to it if they look a little dry, but you can't really take it out. So just be mindful of how much you're cooking. I put it down there for about 2.5 pounds, and then with 4 cups. But of course, there's probably parties of 2, there's probably parties of 4, maybe 6 people that are eating, so you just got to kind of judge on what you were doing. The shallots, I did make a little bit of an error when I put the recipe together. I wrote 2 shallots rather than 2 tablespoons of shallots. They are minced, so you want to try to get those diced or minced as small as possible. So it's basically slicing them down, getting those slices on the board, and then just keep chopping and chopping and chopping and getting it minced up.
What temp is the oven?
The oven is going on broil. That is top heat down, not a temperature. Set it to broil on high. It will be a relatively quick cook on the salmon. It's probably 5 minutes, 7 minutes max. If you like crispy salmon, you'll go to 10 minutes. But we're probably about 5 to 7 in this household. So the first thing we're going to do is, I don't know what time it is. I don't know if I'm really going to start just yet.
Yeah.
Everybody's here, everybody's cooking, so I'll get going. Basically what we'll do, we're going to get to the stove. We're going to take our minced shallots. We're going to have our white wine and vinegar. I put both of those in here together. And then what we're doing is we're making a maple beurre blanc. Beurre blanc, simplest translation, is white butter. It is basically just a butter sauce. It's going to go over the fish. Very, very good. It's very versatile. You can use it for lemon, for whitefish. You just would use lemon juice instead of vinegar with the white wine, or you can, exclude white wine and just go vinegar, or you can just go, lemon juice, whatever. I like the balance of both. You can also add herbs to it, which will add, a little bit more flavor, but we're just keeping it a little bit on the simple side. I know everybody was kind of like, man, these ingredients are a little bit expensive, hard to find, this and that, and that's kind of what I was afraid of in this whole thing of, kind of doing the whole run around and trying to keep things accessible and also a little bit on the cheap side, but you want salmon, we got to go into it. So you ask, you receive. So it's a 1/4 cup of the white wine. 2 tablespoons of vinegar, and then we're going to do 2 tablespoons of the maple syrup. We're just going to put that in the pot with the shallots and get it onto like a medium heat so it starts reducing down. We're going to reduce it down until it's almost dry. Then we add butter into it, and we're going to start whisking that. So get a whisk ready for that as well. So I'm going to head on over.
Real fast, is it the broiler on high or low?
I put it on high. All right, so we'll get this, I have it on my rear burner here. We're gonna get that up to about medium. We'll throw the shallots in. Like I said, it's 2 tablespoons of minced shallots. They're going in. I know some people had a little bit of difficulty finding shallots, so a good substitute is a white onion. Some people said they had green onion left from last week, but you only want to use the white parts of that. You'll just mince that down. Put a pinch of garlic powder if you have garlic powder. Other than that, maybe 1 clove of garlic. Shallots just somewhere in between those 2 flavors. You know, it just kind of has that kind of look. This is a banana shallot. That's the only ones I could find right now. It's just a little bit on the longer side. But there's French shallots, gray shallots, all kinds of different stuff. So basically that's just going in. 2 tablespoons of maple. You normally would want to use like white pepper just to watch your color, just to kind of keep this very one kind of creamy, silky look to it without any little specks. But you might, you know, you're not going to have white pepper. If you have it, you can use it. Put it on the fine grind, and just like 1 or 2 little grinds in there, it'll be okay. Now you don't want to reduce it too quickly. So that's why we're going to keep it, we can get it up to like, you know, medium high heat right now just to kind of get it going. But then we're going to reduce that temperature down to medium low and just kind of let this cook down. We want to get the flavor out of the shallots and then just kind of let that liquid reduce down, you know, a little bit easier. I got to turn my oven on broil here. It doesn't take too long to get to the broil temp. We can get our potatoes going. We have on the back there, it's just like you would normally boil potatoes in water. We're just going to add the milk and seasonings right into it. If you have any leftover shallot, we can use some of that minced shallot with the green beans. So you can just kind of, you know, versatily use those items so you don't have any leftovers. Just going to add a little bit more flavor to it. Let me just grab my recipes. So, I have my milk measured out here. So I got a little bit of a bubbling going on with my beurre blanc reduction that we're starting. So I'm just going to take that down, turn on that light so you can see it's just bubbling a little bit there. So we're just going to turn it down just so it gets a light simmer, and it'll slowly reduce. It'll break down the shallots, make them a little bit on the softer side, adds a lot more flavor to it. Then what we're going to be doing with that is we're whisking in the cold butter that you have diced. So it's a stick of butter that is diced down.
The shallots are in, that's what you just showed.
It's the shallots, your white wine, your vinegar, and your maple syrup all in that pot and reducing down. Just get it up to that boiling point and then turn the temperature down to medium low and just kind of let that start to reduce. And we're going to reduce that down to almost dry. Then we'll start whisking in the butter. The potatoes. As I said, you just kind of want to cover it. I need a little bit more milk in there. she likes rosemary a lot. If you have some dried rosemary, throw it in there with the potatoes. It adds a nice flavor to it. These are all just kind of things that happen as I cook most of the time before that's how I write recipes and kind of get things going. It's just, little things happen along the way where you're like, oh man, I want a little of that tonight.
Becky said she thought it was 2 sticks of butter.
For the beurre blanc,
I don't know.
you need 2 sticks of butter for the whole recipe. One is for the potatoes, one is for the beurre blanc.
And how much milk was it?
Depending on how much potatoes you're using, you just want to cover it in the pot that you're using it in. So if you have a larger pot like this and the potatoes are on the bottom, cover them. If they're in a higher pot like this, bring it up to cover. A little bit of the liquid will go away. The starches from the potato are going to release. That's going to give the thickening. You don't lose anything. It goes right in the mixer. You can match it right in there. But if you're using the 2.5 pounds of potato, then you're using about 4 cups of milk.
So no water in the potatoes.
No water in the potatoes. You're cooking it right in your milk. Let me know how everybody's doing. I don't want to go too fast. A lot of this is relatively easy, so I'm kind of flowing through it, but I don't want to leave anybody behind. You doing all right over there? All right. So I have my frying pan here. I'm turning that to medium heat, and I'm going to throw our diced pancetta in that. They're about, little 1/2-inch chunks, nothing spectacular.
Did you add any pepper or salt to the pepper sauce?
To the pepper sauce? I don't have a pepper sauce, so I don't know what we're talking about.
What did you just put pepper in?
I put pepper in the mashed potatoes. Season the mashed potatoes with salt and pepper. I put a little bit of salt and a little bit of pepper into what is going to be our beurre blanc, which is the white wine, maple, the shallots, and the rice wine. Well, white balsamic. I'm using rice wine just because I didn't want to buy any white balsamic, being cheap.
So there's a little bit of salt in the maple sauce.
Yes, in the maple sauce. Did you say maple sauce? I thought you said pepper sauce. That's why I
Say
was.
pepper
Oh,
sauce.
okay. I was like, am I mishearing? Yeah, a little bit of salt, a little bit of pepper. If you have white pepper, you can put that in there, and that's going to give you that nice even color. But I just have black pepper, so that's what I'm using. So that's what that looks like right now. It's just a liquid, and it's just cooking down really slowly. We're going to reduce it down until it's almost dry. This is what our potatoes look like. I have that about medium high right now. It's just going to get it up to temperature, and then I'll reduce that temp down. And then I have the pancetta. I add that in when it is the pan is cool, and then I turn it up to medium. The crispiest bacon you'll ever have, the crispiest pancetta you'll ever have is always starting on a cooler surface. It comes up, it reduces the fat slower, and then it just evaporates any moisture to it, and it'll give you a nice crisp piece of bacon. You put it into a hot pan, it kind of shrivels it a little bit faster, and that all depends on your quality of bacon and stuff too. So, all right, so we have potatoes going, our beurre blanc is started, we have the water boiling for our green beans to blanch. If you need to, you can get out a strainer for your green beans, so when you want to dump the water, it's ready to go. And we're going to head back over here, and we're going to get the salmon ready to go into broil.
Maybe you should ask Kim if she has any questions before.
I think Kim's scared. She pre-asked questions, and I was like, chill! She's our #1 fan. Kim, do you have any questions? All right. So I have 2 pieces of sockeye, as that was the wild salmon I was able to find. It was previously frozen, but I'd rather have frozen salmon that is wild than fresh salmon that is farmed. It's a much healthier fish, and I try to support, you know, the wild local stuff. So, United States at least. All right, so basically what we're gonna do is we're gonna peel apart our smoked salmon here, and we're gonna layer it across. I'll put this on here just so you guys can actually see what's going on. We're gonna layer this across the entire piece of fish. This is a recipe that I kind of jacked off of a place that I worked. Sarah and I worked there together. Maybe you made a play on the name of the dish based on that, but so it's just going to give the saltiness that you want for the fish is going to come out of this smoked salmon, and also it's going to add a really nice texture to the top, and then it's going to give it a smoky taste as well, which is why we're going to use that maple beurre blanc. It's going to give a really great contrast to that smoky sweet that we all love so much. I hear a little noise going on over here, so I just want to give it a check. All right, I heard my pancetta talking, so I just wanted to make sure what was going on. So the one thing about cooking is you kind of have to use all of your senses, especially when you're in a busy kitchen. You know, sound, smells, all that good stuff. You need to know that it's coming out the right way. All right. I wasn't sure if you were coming in close here. So I know Sarah's going to be wanting me to make bagels now, so she can put the rest of this salmon on the bagel. All right, so the fun thing about this week is like literally our prep is pretty much done. Everything is cooking already. You don't have as much complete mayhem as we had going on last week with all those little measurements of seasonings and this and that. So hopefully it's a little bit easier, but yeah, there's just, you know, hopefully everybody's catching up quick. But you know, this dish at a restaurant will cost you, you know, 20-something, $25. This is something you can make at home, relatively inexpensive, just as long as, you know, like you find other uses for your ingredients, like the smoked salmon. We love that in scrambled eggs with some red onion, even some caper in there. Like I said, on a bagel with cream cheese, red onion and caper, it goes great. I've even made it inside of a ravioli with cream cheese and did a kind of a play on it that way once. Really would like to do some fresh pasta with you guys. I think that would be pretty fun. The only thing is it can be a little bit on the time-consuming spot with resting the pasta dough in between. So I have to figure out if we should do like a pre-video for that in the week to show you how to make it, and that way it's rested by the time we start, or we're just going to have about a 30-minute downtime to really drink before we start putting making the pasta by hand. All right, slowly reducing down over there. Just crisping up this pancetta. It's going to take a little while because of how it is thick. All of that good grease and everything that's in there is what we want. This is some of the leftover shallot that I have, so I'm going to eventually throw that in there with the green beans, and that's going to give a really good, you know, extra just flavor to the dish. It's not going to take anything away, it's going to add, so it's good stuff. Our potatoes are kind of starting to get some work done back there. I'll just give that a stir, try to get all that seasoning down in there. The salmon, like I said, is about 5 to 7 minutes, so that's going to go in really close to this being done. The hardest part of this dish is probably going to be the beurre blanc. It's not super hard, but it's just one of those things. It takes a little time. It's a lot of whisk working and just getting that done. And if you're mashing your potatoes with a hand masher, then that'll be a little bit of work to it. Other than that, if you're using a power mixer or a KitchenAid, it kind of cuts that time bit out of it. So I'm just waiting for the water to come up to blanch the green beans. If your water's boiling, you're more than welcome to do that already. Just know that when you take it out, run it under a little bit of cold water. Like you said, you just want to get those green beans to that bright color. It's about 2-3 minutes, and then pull them out, put them in the sink. If you like your green beans soft, do not run them under cold water. Let them just chill. If you like them with a little bit of a firmness and a crunch, then you'll want to run them under cold water to get them to stop, because they're going to go into this pan with the pancetta. Oh boy, my milk's getting away from me. Oh boy. Whoa, Nelly. Nothing like the smell of burnt milk in your kitchen. All right. Now watch that. Don't do that. Just cooking those potatoes just like you would, in water. Just going to have that little bit of tenderness, and then they'll go right in to get mashed. So the one thing about making mashed potatoes with water is you boil them and then you dump it out, so they're going to have a little bit of water log to them. But then also when you add in your milk and your cream, if you didn't, and your butter, if it's not room temp or if it's not warmed up a little bit, it's going to cool down your mash. So we're cutting that curve just to kind of make this a one pot stop today. The thing with the beurre blanc too is when the reason you want to have the butter cold is it's going to help you emulsify the dish so you get a nice smooth butter sauce. So what we're actually going to do is remove it from the heat as we add the butter in and melt the butter slowly. You don't want it to get too hot, you don't want it to get too cold. It'll actually cause the butter to break, right? So you'll have your sauce will break. So I'm ready to start adding my butter into this. You want to come take a look. See how it's almost dry? There's just a little bit of liquid down in there. That's what we're going to use. You're not going to add all your butter. You're going to add about, if you cubed it like I did, about 1/2 inch, you're going to add roughly 6 and pull it off of the heat. Set it on a towel. Just kind of start whisking away. The butter will melt slowly, but just kind of keep it moving, because that's what's going to create that emulsification in there. Don't want to catch my towel on fire. Keep that burner on. You can kind of put it on a little bit of a low medium, and then we'll add the. We'll put this back on the heat to kind of bring it back up, and it'll just kind of stay in that nice little balance of heat and cool. See how it's just starting to form that sauce, but you're just trying to keep going, adding it in. Excuse me, Sarah, I need a little bit of room to work there. pancetta,
That
add
was
your
more butter.
potatoes. What happened?
That was more butter.
Yep, I'm adding more butter now.
So Rachel said they still have a lot of liquid. Should they turn it up instead?
Let it reduce on its own pace. I mean, I don't know what you have it at. I had mine on a medium low. You don't want to go like, you don't want to take it too fast because you don't want to, you want the shallots to kind of slowly break down and actually, become a part of it. So when you whisk it, they blend with the sauce. It's still going to have a little bit of a chunkiness to it. You can actually strain this through a really small mesh strainer, and it'll make the sauce really smooth. And that just depends if you want to do that or not. It will look prettier for sure. You can see how it's just kind of nice and buttery. As the rest of that goes in, it'll get even better. I have my water boiling here. I think Sarah was getting excited. She kind of wanted to show you boiling water. Pancetta is crisping up pretty good. I'm going to turn that down just a touch so it doesn't burn on me. I'll run into this, knock it on the floor. We'll all be up out the door. A little more butter in there.
A little more butter where?
Into the beurre blanc. You're just going to keep doing that until all of your butter is gone. And as you whisk it and you whisk it and you whisk it until all the butter is melted in, incorporated into the sauce. And just add more until it's all done. Some people add some cream to their beurre blanc. A traditional beurre blanc does not have cream, but you can do it. It helps it can actually make it a little bit easier, and you would add that in before you start with the butter. If your sauce breaks, you can warm up some cream and then add that to the beurre blanc, and that will help bring that sauce back together and bind it up. I have a lot of stuff going on right now. I'm sure you guys all do too. Trying to talk and do this all at the same time gets a little bit crazy sometimes. Get lost in my thoughts. Sarah just sits there and looks pretty. Stares at me. This is how it is when I'm not doing this though too. Can I help? I'm fine, I'll sit over here. Alright. What's that? Drink or wine? Yep. Alright. Back on there. Turn it down just a bit. I'm going to move my pancetta off the heat because that's pretty good. Get back over to this. Just keep whisking. A little bit of work on this. Has anybody ever made risotto in the group? I was thinking about doing a dish with that too. You want to talk about constant workout. Your arm is tired after that. Kind of like being a teenage boy. I have not put the green beans in the pancetta. I just have them in the sink. I chilled them off a little bit, trying to, just stop the cooking process on that. They're going to just be kind of heated up in the pancetta with oil, a little bit of butter. So we can kind of forget about them for the moment. The next big thing we got to do is get the salmon and potatoes mashed. We're just trying to get this sauce worked out. What's that?
Kim said, "Oh my God."
Kimmy, I might have broke my sauce a little bit here too. I can't tell right now if I'm letting it get on the heat. I let it go on the heat there for a second. I shouldn't have. We'll see. It'll still taste good. It'll just be a little lumpy. About 2 to 3 minutes, but that's going to be a lot of preference. Like I've always said, is if you guys like your beans a little bit more done, let them go a little bit so they soften up. Sarah and I kind of like our vegetables a little bit on the fresher side, like a crunchiness to them, al dente. So it's really just kind of up to you and how you want to serve them. Test our potatoes. Just stick a fork in there. See how they are. Now they're kind of starting to get real soft where you can stick a fork through pretty easily. That's where you want them to be. It needs a little bit more time, but that's okay because we got to get the salmon in the oven. So I think I screwed my sauce the pooch, guys. I think I screwed the pooch. Yeah, I definitely lost that. Okay, that happens, so don't worry. Everybody makes mistakes. All right. The oven was on high, so we're gonna go ahead and get the salmon in there. Like I said, about 5 to 7 minutes, and it's gonna be finished. So if you like your salmon really, really well done, 8 to 10, I'd say max, because it is broiling. It's going down onto the heat. It's kind of like grilling, but in reverse. Not super thick fillets. If you have a thicker fish, you know, sometimes like an Atlantic salmon or something will be a little more narrow and a little higher. You may need a little bit more time, but I'm very comfortable eating salmon at a medium. So just up to you. Crush that sauce. I'm gonna see if I can bring the sauce back. I add in a little bit of cream and nuking her.
No season on salmon.
No, the smoked salmon on top is what is going to season that piece of fish for you. There's a lot of salt in smoked salmon, so that'll give enough flavor coming down. And then if you want to add pepper later, you can, but pepper in the oven sometimes can burn, so I try not to add that on there too much. Something was trying to escape from the microwave. Cheers. You need like a two-handed cup there. Okay. Try to bring this back.
How is everyone doing with the beurre blanc sauce?
All right, Sarah, come grab that and just show everybody what I just did there. So my I should have showed you beforehand. I apologize. I was kind of panicking trying to get it back. But what happened was it got a little bit too hot and cold, so the water and the fat separated in the pan. So what I did is I threw about a quarter cup of milk, which I didn't need all of it, in the microwave. I put it in for 30 seconds, took it out at about 24, and then I slowly added that in to the sauce and just kept whisking while I did that. And as you can see, it has re-emulsified it. So I saved the sauce, but you can only do that probably one time before it'll all go to schmack again. All right, get your beans, or I'm sorry, your pancetta. Turn back on. You're probably starting to smell the salmon cooking if you have it in the oven. I got all kinds of weird stuff going on over here with these taters, bubbles and brains growing. All right.
Kim said her sauce is perfect.
Good job, Kim.
Rachel's sauce is still reducing, but they're getting close.
Don't you cook on gas? Don't you cook on gas, Rachel?
I think so.
Figure you should be the one that's like done before everybody. All right, I think my taters are pretty close to going in the machine. Now, Kim, if you have a small mesh strainer, you can stick the sauce, that strainer over a bowl, pour the sauce, it'll take all those chunks of shallots out of it, and that's going to give it a really smooth texture. If you don't mind the chunks, you can leave them in. It's not a big deal. I'm probably going to leave them in just because I don't feel like washing an extra dish. So.
What is the pancetta set on?
Right now, I'm turning it up to about a medium high because we're just going to kind of flash cook the green beans with those. The mashed potatoes, the pancetta, and the salmon, we're going to try to get all done in around the same time. I have 35 seconds on my salmon, so I'm going to get a couple minutes to rest. Now I'm going to go throw this in the machine. Do this carefully if you're dealing with a KitchenAid. Make sure you turn it on low so you don't have any craziness. You have the shield, probably put that on.
Potatoes won't be too runny with all the milk and butter.
I'm sorry.
Potatoes won't be too runny with all the milk and butter.
It's depending on how much you actually put in and versus what, sorry, I'm just looking over there. Depending on how much you actually put in compared to the amount of potato that you're using. If you want, you know, if you feel that how much milk you have is too much, just scoop some of that milk out before you start mashing it. Because once you start mashing it, you're not going to really be able to get it in. You're going to use, you know, about a, I don't know, I'm gonna go with about a half of a thing of butter just because of what I actually use for potato. I'm saving another tablespoon to throw in with the pancetta and also the green beans. That'll just help all that coat. If you guys are gonna add some shallots to the green beans, you can go ahead and do that now. Let them start cooking. Throw the butter in. And I have that on medium heat, guys. Alright. Green beans are coming out.
Rachel used bacon, there's a lot of grease. Should they drain some of the grease?
That's totally up to you. If you don't want the grease, don't eat it. I would probably keep it in, but the easiest way to get it to coat is just tossing it in the pan, put on that skillet, and you're going to need to, you know, do a little bit of the tossing with a spoon, a little bit of salt and pepper. So, yeah. My like worst nightmare would be like throwing some hot food on Zoe's back. All right, see how nice that looks. Those big old crispy chunks of pancetta, salt, pepper. I have the shallots in there too because I had some extra. And now I'm gonna head over. Got all my burners turned off. Salmon is done. My potatoes are mashed. Very steamy in there. All right. Your sauce should be good. Now the one thing that should most of the time happen when you cook the salmon like this is the skin should stick to the foil, and then you'll be able to peel the fillet off and have the skin left behind. So let's see how that goes. Well, some of it did, but do that. Salmon skin's really good for you though, so it's not too bad if you want to eat it. All right. So whoever jinxed me with the potato question, definitely loose.
Who do you think?
Kim or Vicky?
Kim?
It's funny, you know, I make this twice in a week because I have to go through everything to make sure it works. You know, write the recipe and all that kind of stuff. And my potatoes came out perfect last time. So, just the way the cookie crumbles. Get some of those pancetta bits on there. And then the maple glaze, maple beurre blanc over the top. And that was that. I think it's a little bit less time consuming than the gringoladas. Maybe a little bit easier. There's just a lot of stuff like, you know, all cooking at the same time, so you're kind of used to that. It's not really that big of a deal. But I don't know. Guys, gotta let me know what you're thinking, where you are, how everybody's doing. Does it look good? Are you happy? Need a beer? There's so much going on, I could hardly drink today. Last week was a little bit stressful with all those little measurements. This week kind of went really fast. How quick did we cook that? What time is it?
It's 5:46.
5:46, so we did that in about 40 minutes. And you will always get better and faster, especially when you're just, doing it on your own. So you gotta, it's real easy to do. Especially if you blanch your green beans beforehand and keep them in the fridge. Have all your, your mashed potato or something left over. You can heat it up and just make that fish in the oven. It takes 7 minutes to cook it. So, very easy dishes. And you can pay a good price for them at a restaurant. So, go birds. If you have too many mashed potatoes, don't fret, because that's what I have to do every morning. I always make a little extra because my lovely wife loves potato pancakes, and that is actually another thing you can do is make some potato bellini, a little potato pancake, smoked salmon, a little bit of sour cream, creme fraiche if you can find it, all those usual flavors, lemon, caper, red onion on top. Great little brunch breakfast thing.
Angela said she messed her sauce up, but there's plenty to make more.
Okay. Did it break on you? You got some? Did you have the problem with the liquid separating? You can heat up heat up some milk, and then try to add that in slowly and whisk it, and you should be able to get it to bind back up. She's got to eat it off camera just in case it's not good.
It's always good.
You never know. You never know. All right, I'll give it a try. To me, the salmon is cooked perfectly. Honey,
You said
good
they're
stuff.
dipping up, looks good, things, Kim is digging in.
Good stuff. Is everybody good? We out of here?
We're 60
Pour a glass of that white wine that you used to make the sauce and enjoy that with this dish. That's one of the best things about it. The wine you cook with is the wine you can eat with. It's very, very nice. Whites go great with fish. So enjoy, guys, and I will try to get next week's recipe out as fast as I can. Please continue to send us ideas for things we can do. And like I said, just try to keep in mind, make sure it's something that can be cooked all at one time. And I really want to do some really fun and cool things with you, but a lot of it just takes like oven time or braising time or something like that. So it gets a little difficult to try to plan those things out. So we got to try to figure something out with those. But thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you next week. Thanks a bunch.